All right, get ready because today we're going to dive into something kind of crazy.
Yeah.
You sent us some articles about what would happen if the Earth just stopped spinning. And wow, it's really a thought experiment that gets you thinking. We're talking like complete standstill, even if just for like a quick 5 seconds.
It really makes you think about, how much we depend on the Earth's constant motion. We don't even realize it, but this rotation is really this delicate balancing act that makes life as we know it even possible.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, we're so used to feeling like stationary, that it's easy to forget we're actually like hurtling through space
Yeah,
at like incredible speeds.
exactly. And your sources actually point out some pretty eye-opening figures. Like if you're standing at the equator, you're moving at a wild 1,670 kilometers per hour. That's over 1,000 miles an hour.
Oh, wow. I knew it was fast, but that number is just like, whoa, that's huge. Really puts things into perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And that speed changes, depending on where you are on the planet. For example, in New York, you'd be moving at around 12,280 kilometers per hour, while at the poles, it drops to almost zero.
So, I mean, what's stopping us from feeling like we're on some sort of like cosmic merry-go-round? Why aren't we constantly dizzy?
It's all about inertia. Inertia is, the tendency for objects to keep moving at the same speed and in the same direction, unless, something acts on them, some force acts on them. Think about being on a train. If the train is moving smoothly at a constant speed, you barely feel it, unless it suddenly speeds up or slows down or changes direction.
So everything on Earth like us, the air, the oceans, it's all moving together in sync of the planet.
Exactly. But things get really, really interesting and kind of terrifying when you think about that, that harmony being disrupted. What happens if that smooth ride comes to a sudden screeching halt?
Oh, okay. I'm already picturing it, and it's not good. One of the articles used a car analogy that was really chilling.
Yeah, it's a good way to think about it. Imagine you're in a car going 1,000 miles an hour and you slam into a brick wall. I mean, the forces involved would be unimaginable. Now, apply that to everything on Earth. Buildings, trees, the ground beneath our feet.
So it's not just the planet stopping, it's everything on it being subjected to this huge force. Because it's still trying to move, right? At its original speed.
Precisely. Cars would be thrown forward, buildings would crumble, trees would be uprooted, and people, well, let's just say it wouldn't be good.
The article described it as people being thrown forward like bullets. Just trying to, imagine the chaos and destruction. It's almost overwhelming.
It's definitely a sobering thought, and that's only the immediate impact. We haven't even started to think about the atmosphere and the oceans.
Oh, right. The superstorms and the huge tsunamis, things are starting to feel truly apocalyptic.
Yes. The atmosphere, just like everything else, is moving along with the Earth at incredible speeds. If the Earth suddenly stopped, the atmosphere wouldn't just stop with it.
So it would just keep moving, creating these insane winds as it goes over the Earth.
Right. We're talking winds much stronger than any hurricane or tornado or anything we've ever seen. These winds would be so strong they could reshape the landscape, tear through forests, level cities, even strip away the soil.
Wow. It's hard to imagine the scale of the destruction those winds would cause.
And then we have to think about the ocean.
Oh, man, the tsunami. Yeah, the articles painted this terrifying picture of waves, over 1,000 feet high, sweeping across, entire continents. I mean, that's taller than most skyscrapers.
Yeah, these wouldn't just be normal tsunamis. They would have the power to, completely change coastlines, wiping out entire cities, maybe even carving new valleys miles inland. Major coastal cities, Tokyo, London, even those further inland would be devastated. No place on Earth would be safe from these waves.
It really makes you appreciate how, balanced everything is, how the planet is balanced, right?
It does. But even with, these superstorms and mega tsunamis, it still doesn't end there.
You're talking about the earthquakes and the volcanoes, right? The article mentioned something about the tectonic plates going crazy.
Yes. The Earth's crust, it's made up of these, massive plates that are always moving, shifting, even though it's very slowly. But if the Earth stopped rotating, those plates would be thrown into total chaos, leading to earthquakes and volcanic eruptions like we've never seen before.
So on top of these crazy winds and tsunamis, we'd also have the ground below us crumbling and spewing out molten rock. It sounds like straight out of a movie.
We're talking about earthquakes possibly stronger than anything ever recorded, maybe even surpassing magnitude 12. Volcanoes that haven't erupted in centuries could erupt with incredible force.
It's a pretty bleak picture. And to think all this would happen in just the first 5 seconds.
Exactly. The sudden stop would set off this chain reaction of, catastrophic events,
Hmm.
reshaping the planet in an instant.
So we've just gone through like 5 seconds of pure chaos. What happens next? Does the Earth just stay frozen, or does it like eventually start spinning again?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the answer is, well, it depends. It really depends on if the Earth starts moving again, like instantly, or if it takes a bit longer to, get going again.
Okay, let's start with that instant restart.
Yeah.
What kind of like double whammy of destruction are we talking about?
Well, imagine everything that was just thrown, eastward at these crazy speeds is suddenly yanked back the other way, just as violently. Those cars, buildings, and even people would experience like another huge jolt of force as the Earth tries to, regain that momentum.
Oh, so those people who were just launched forward like bullets, they would now experience that same force, but in reverse. That's rough.
It would be like, slamming on the brakes after a high-speed crash. And remember those tsunamis, those huge tsunamis that just like reshaped the coastlines? Well, they would now rebound in the opposite direction, creating even more, chaos and destruction.
It's hard to imagine something more chaotic than that initial stop, but this instant restart might be even worse.
It would be, yeah, a recipe for like total destruction.
Okay, so what if the Earth takes like a little longer to start spinning again? Would that be a better scenario? Would it be less destructive?
Well, a slower restart might, lessen that second jolt, but it would still leave the planet, reeling from that initial destruction. And the longer the Earth stays still, the more time those superstorms have to rage and those tsunamis have to, change the land, and the more time those earthquakes, volcanoes have to, cause havoc. Plus, we'd have to deal with the long-term effects of all this disruption. Like, what would happen to our weather systems?
So we're talking about like decades of crazy weather patterns, right?
Exactly. Imagine a world where storms last for months, temperatures go up and down like crazy, and, the seasons become totally unpredictable.
Wow. It's a scary thought.
Yeah.
I can't imagine much surviving something like that. Is there any hope for life on Earth after this happens?
Well, survival, depends on a lot of things, but
Yep.
the odds, they definitely aren't in our favor. Just think about, the scale of the destruction we've been talking about. It's hard to think that any infrastructure, would survive.
So cities, power grids, communication networks, all gone.
It's, yeah, very likely. The articles you sent, they suggest that the best chance of survival would be for those who are, like, deep underground. Miners, subway passengers, people in those reinforced bunkers.
So deep underground or like
Yeah.
underwater, those are our best bets.
It seems like it, yeah. Some deep-sea creatures, they might survive that initial chaos. But the long-term effects on the oceans, they would be devastating. We're talking about changes in ocean currents, temperature shifts and disruptions to the food chain. It's very possible that this would trigger like mass extinctions, both on land and in the sea.
So even if some people, manage to survive, they'd be facing a totally different world, a world without, the resources and the things that we rely on.
Yeah, imagine a world with no electricity, no easy access to food or water, and a drastically different climate. It's hard to imagine, anything like our modern civilization coming back from that.
It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it? I mean, we think of Earth as this like solid, unchanging thing, but really it's incredibly delicate and complex.
Yeah, this thought experiment is a good reminder that, we're not just living on Earth, but we're a part of it. Our survival, it depends on, the planet's well-being, and messing that up, even for a few seconds, would have disastrous consequences.
Okay, so we've talked about how bad it would be if the Earth stopped spinning, but is this something we should really worry about? Should I like start building a doomsday bunker?
Well, before you start, stocking up on canned food and digging underground, I think it's important to think about the chances of this actually happening. The good news is that the Earth is a pretty stable, spinning top. It's been rotating for billions of years, and there's nothing inside it that would just make it, stop suddenly. So you don't have to worry about the planet just, randomly deciding to stop spinning.
Okay, that's a relief. But I know the articles mentioned, some things outside the Earth that could potentially mess things up.
Right. There are some, cosmic events that could maybe disrupt the Earth's rotation, although the chances of them happening are really, really small. We're talking about like massive asteroid impacts, collisions with like rogue planets or maybe even some, crazy advanced alien technology that we can't even, understand.
So it's not impossible, but it's also not something I need to worry about every day.
Exactly. The universe is, a vast and unpredictable place, but the odds of something, knocking the Earth off its axis, like we've been talking about, are uh, incredibly small.
Well, that's good to know. This whole deep dive has been quite a journey, full of like mind-blowing facts and some pretty scary what ifs.
It's been a fascinating exploration, hasn't it? These kinds of thought experiments, even when they're about, potentially disastrous events, they can really help us, appreciate the balance of our planet and our place on it.
They also make you think about what you would do, if you knew the world was about to change completely. One of the articles asked a really interesting question. If you had only 5 seconds to prepare for the Earth to stop spinning, what would you do?
That's a great question, isn't it? It makes you think about what's really important when, faced with the unimaginable.
Yeah, it does. I think after this deep dive, I'd probably just, you know, grab my loved ones, hold them close, and just appreciate those last few moments of normalcy before everything went crazy.
That's a perfectly reasonable response. There's no, right or wrong answer. It's really about, prompting us to think and reflect. What about you? What would you do with those 5 seconds?
I think for me, those 5 seconds would be less about like trying to prepare
Hmm.
or whatever, and more about just, being there, being present. But like taking a step back from, the hypothetical, I'm kind of curious, like, what are the biggest takeaways for you from all this? What should we, as people still spinning around on this planet, be thinking about?
That's a really good question. I think for me, it goes back to this idea of perspective. We often get so busy with our daily lives that we forget to like appreciate that balance that keeps life going on this planet. And this whole thought experiment, even though it might seem extreme, it really shows us how much we, take for granted.
It's so true. We just assume that, the ground will always be there, the sun will rise and set, the seasons will change, like always. But this deep dive has shown us that even the things that seem like the most constant, they can be disrupted.
And those disruptions, they can happen on a scale that's, really hard to imagine. The Earth's rotation isn't just some like abstract idea. It's the basis of our existence. It determines our days and nights. It affects weather. It even plays a role in like ocean currents, which help regulate our climate.
It's interesting. We started this deep dive talking about, speeds and forces, stuff that seems very like physics based. But
Right.
now we're talking about like the very essence of life on Earth. That's a pretty big shift in perspective.
It is, and I think it's an important one. We can't just, think of scientific knowledge as something separate from our lives. The more we understand about, how our planet works, the more we can appreciate how fragile it is and how everything is connected.
Yeah, it's like that saying, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. But in this case, it's more like you don't know what you've got till you imagine it, like spinning out of control.
Exactly. It's a reminder that we're not just, living on this planet, but we're part of this like huge, intricate, cosmic dance. And that dance, like we learned today, is much more delicate than we might think.
This has been a really thought-provoking deep dive. We've looked at the science, the potential for, disaster, and really like the deeper meaning of our existence on this, spinning blue planet. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one last thought.
Okay, go on. I'm listening.
Knowing what we now know about, how balanced our planet is and the crazy chaos that could happen if that balance is messed up,
Yeah.
how does that change, how you see the world around you? What would you do differently, knowing that even the things that seem like the most constant can be, changed in an instant?
That's a deep question. And I think it's one that, we each need to answer for ourselves. There's no like right or wrong answer, but just asking it makes us, think about what we believe and appreciate this moment right now.
We've given you a lot to think about today, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. Head over to our website or our social media and let us know what you think about this, mind-bending what if. And until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never take this amazing spinning world for granted.